Cool. Yeah, let's get started. So the first presentation that we have is Nave. Nave, are you here? Is your mic open and ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Awesome. So yeah, Nave has a project called Leisure AI, which is going to essentially power your calendar via AI. But I'll let her explain and show us what she's got. This is awesome. Go ahead and take it
Yeah,
away.
thank you, Alex. Hi guys. This is my first presentation, so I'm really nervous. And my first like grant proposal, so all of this is brand new. So I hope that
Awesome.
um, I don't blow it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm also going to not go straight from my presentation just because I need the experience to build. So I'm just going to jump in.
Sweet.
So I wonder for any of you, do you ever feel that your free time has lost its value?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we as digital citizens and just really busy people don't really have time to prioritize the things that we want to do in our downtime. Downtime meaning any time that you have for yourself that is not committed to someone else, an employer or a partner or friends or anything like that. And for me, I got this idea a long time ago, like 15 plus years ago, because I'm someone who has a variety of diverse interests and hobbies, but I never can really find the time, and it does take time to find quality events and things that you're interested in that might be niche, right? I'm not necessarily talking about parties and gatherings and heading to the bar and having a great time with your friends. I'm more interested in educational experiences that allow me to grow as a human and that inspires me so that I can be my best self, outside of anything that might be in life, right? So I came up with this idea that I call Leisure AI, which fixes the problem of passing our free time just watching television or lying on a couch or doing some other passive tasks when we really could be building on ourselves as humans. Um, and so this tool will be able to interact with a calendar that it defines for you. You as the user would just define the parameters of the things that you're looking for, whether it's conferences or philosophy circles or astronomy groups. You'll be able to interact with your quote unquote calendar helper to let them know about your evolving interests, and then that calendar helper would then be able to scour publicly available information for those interests and suggest them to you inside of a calendar user interface that you interact with. So in the beginning, it could be just suggestions that pop up, and based and whatever metadata descriptions it might have, you can decide if it's worth your interest or not. And every time you're interacting, it's tweaking and learning from that experience. And this is something that you can do in your local neighborhood, or even if you're traveling, if you're going on vacation in a couple of weeks and you're interested in those types of niche environments, or activities or events, then you can tell your calendar, hey, find me something to do in Portugal next month while I'm working there. And I feel that the more time that we actually give to valuable experiences, meanwhile encounters, whether it's by yourself or meeting other people, the more fulfilled we will become and happier human beings. I know that I've done manual prototypes of this in the past, and that really helped me streamline my life to just prioritize the things that I'm only really interested about. So I'm not constantly in front of the television consuming, mass advertisements, but I'm actually spending time in selective areas that I choose. So what would it be like to actually have an assistant to line up all of those enriching experiences for you, I think we could have a better world. That's it.
Awesome. 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 Yeah, great presentation, honestly. Like that was really good. Number one. Number two, have you thought of ways to begin implementing this? Like if you're going to implement this as an MVP, what tools would you use? What APIs would you use? Or yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm also looking, I'm really planning on building this. So, this is something that's going to happen no matter what. So I'm really looking for machine learning and data science advisors to help me scope out, where it makes sense for us to start from a technical perspective, but certainly from a user interface. I see groups like Meetup, any conference websites that are out there as a resource to like be built into, the repository that's being searched by the AI. And I had another thought that I wanted to add to that. Yeah, and there's also an interface where you can set the interval that you want these searches to happen and change your interests, just based on what you're currently intrigued by. I see this as an application that it most likely sits with your mobile phone so that you can carry it around and interacts with all of the calendars that you currently have as you set your downtime, based on your needs. Did that answer your question? But I mean, the technical API and how it's going to work, that's certainly, an activity I'd love to be able to explore with advisors once I'm able to onboard some
Yeah.
intelligence.
I, about 15 years ago, was working on a project which was doing calendaring for events. And this was back when the Facebook API was first being opened up. I know it's been that long. And the experience that came out of that was that basically the company ended up slowly becoming a zombie because it was hard to get revenue. The people that you get revenue from is the event hosts. And then the event hosts, I guess, need to have some means of being able to track and being able to see how much money they're spending and how much they're converting people, etc. Mm-hmm. So that's like your main audience is either trying to get revenue that way or to get revenue from users, but most users have like this thing that they want things or they expect things for free.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you 1000% in that is definitely an obstacle to consider. But I see my revenue stream as a little bit different than that, and certainly unorthodox. It's not quite something I'm fully prepared to discuss today, but yeah, I have other parts of this idea that builds an ecosystem of inspired and engaged people, so that this is not just, go to the event managers or go to the users, right? I think there are many other more innovative revenue building models that I would love to be able to introduce to the community if it builds attention.
And then a long time ago, our group built this extension to a protocol called WebDAV, which is sort of like FTP. I'm not sure if you've heard of WebDAV, but it was called CalDAV, CALDAV. Yeah. And what it allows you to do is to pull a remote calendar and then, be able to search through the calendars. Like if you had, every user in your organization has their own calendar, right? And you want to see, whether or not your boss is going to be available or not. You go searching through the CalDAV index of different people's calendars, their ICS files.
Yeah.
And so that's like on the protocol side, how you retrieve calendars. And then I don't know how you intend on collecting events. I guess you could scrape stuff if the terms of service let you scrape.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely we would be scouring websites and public metadata for, what that stuff is, looks like. I think, though, just from my very vanilla understanding of how these things work, I think the data normalization, if nothing else, is probably going to be a huge hurdle. So kind of figuring out the best methods for standardizing this data that we find in a variety of places, and normalizing and making sure that the aggregated information is cohesive, makes sense. I think is something that I'd love to be able to talk more with a data scientist about how that would look.
Yeah, I think you two should link endomorphosis and Maeve. Endomorphosis is super smart and would be able to like really help, at least on the technical side, in terms of advising for sure. Um, I want to thank you again, Maeve, for presenting. This was a lot of fun, and looking forward to your project for sure. Um, yeah. The next one that we have is Orpheus. Am I saying that correctly? Orpheus? Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. His project is centered around researching the benefits and the risks, perhaps, of decentralized AI. So I'll let you take it from here.
Sweet. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Maybe there's a bit of music, but let's go along. Yeah. So I'll try to share my screen. I have a few slides
Cool.
to sort of talk about this. Um, let's see how it works. So recursion, yeah. So
Perfect.
can you see this? I have to refresh.
Yep.
So, okay, all right. So I'm presenting this project, and I'll present this quickly. Essentially, it's doing like a literature survey on risks of decentralized AI. In summary, literature survey is like looking at existing works and existing ideas and systems, and try to come up with some summary and analysis of that. And why? I haven't seen much work at this intersection. And in my view, having understanding of AI risk is like an important thing. And so building this would allow to like gain vision on this, and to for people that are interested in this AI, to like think maybe more clearly about it. And also it would support future understanding future works. Who am I? I'm Orpheus. I'm interested in AICP since a few years ago. These days, I do work as a software engineer in Web3. I studied machine learning at Mila and University de Montréal a little bit, and otherwise I organize events in the AICP space. For example, I was at NERDS not too long ago, and I missed some people. There was actually a workshop on Web3 and AI, and I missed it unfortunately. Anyway, so here I sort of describe briefly what I mean by AI risk. There's various definitions of it, but I'm going with one coming from Dan Hendricks, Mesica this year, which sort of breaks down in terms of like a risk is like hazard, interacting with vulnerability, interacting with like exposure. And yeah, hazard is like, so a risk is like a potential thing. And so there can be harm that interacts, like a potential harm that like can interact with like susceptibility to harm, and when we're more exposed to this, of course, it increases the risk. And there's different ways to like understand the like field of AI risk, and here is like a breakdown. There can be different like understandings, but one is like in terms of like robustness to risk, monitoring, alignment, and systemic safety. Um, there are different like approaches to like handle and understand. In this work, I'd be interested in like being inclusive to like long tail risks, meaning like risks that are also lower probability, and yeah, for the sake of like attention, I would like um, focus on perhaps some more high impact long tail risks. Um, yeah, I think brief background on decentralized AI. There's different. Sorry for the typos in my slides. There's like different like versions of what it can mean. Because I'm not like super familiar with the different ways to understand like distributed ML or decentralized AI at this point. My strategy is to like sort of start with like a specific intersection, which is like sort of like decentralized AI, similar to like Web3 and AI, and then if need be, I'll cast a wider net, including like other fields that use distributed systems techniques in ML. Yeah, and so how to do this? It's essentially a lot of searching, including like using Illicit, which is like something on top of GPT-3, which allows to do research assistance. And so there's like pending and interpreting works. And so for interpretation, you know, because I expect this is one of the early work doing this, it will not be like so much like comparative or like meta analysis, but more so like just taking things as they are and understanding them. Some challenges like there might not be like much at this very intersection, although you know AI risks is like a big thing, and like distributed ML is also big, and so there's some how can I say decision of like what is included and what is not included that I expect to be a little bit challenging. And the idea is to be writing like a paper and create this like database of works that are considered here, and they're shipped in a GitHub repo. And you know, if I see that is like a worthwhile thing, which sounds plausible, probable, I would like publish it on archive and forums related to safety, and I would mint to hypercert for this. And finally, like I invite you to contribute. If you're interested, we can definitely talk. Some ways to help this project is to just like give criticism and feedback, to help find stuff, to help with once a lot of things are found, to sort of help analyze it, and yeah, there's also writing and editing of the paper. So thanks. I included like a poem written by ChatGPT, which I'm gonna read actually. Decentralized AI, a wild beast, untamed, risks abound, beware. AI without bounds, decentralized, untethered, danger lurks within.
Hey, that's awesome.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but yeah, just for the record, my name is like Orpheus Lumis, and if you type this on the search engine, you can contact me and we can work on this.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions or feedback or anything on the presentation?
I was just going to say it's a shame to miss you at NeurIPS in New Orleans. It would have been good to catch up, but still plenty of opportunity remotely. And I think you came across, I see Casey is here. You came across like one of the papers that we submitted to the Web3 workshop on AI safety. Thought it was actually unlucky to to not get accepted with some of our other papers. But yeah, I'm just really excited to continue this work because I think like decentralized AI does pose many advantages in terms of safeties, but of course also risks. And so just like digging into these more from a research perspective will be super interesting.
Sweet.
Yeah, actually, I just want to say, I, I I thought of this idea and like made a proposal, and only then after I realized that you, Richard, had written the paper on this. Um, but like, I still think that there can be, like, without offense, I think the paper that you wrote like is a bit like not going too much into details, and so there's this opportunity to like expand more, and then also to take more into account. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. There's like it's a very early first step, and like plenty of deep dives to do on lots of different topics for sure.
Awesome. So cool. Next up we have Felipe, which is the project is, if I believe, Contract Sentinel. Please take it away, my friend.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, awesome. So guys, how are you? My name is Felipe. I would like to introduce the problem you're facing with a little story about Ethereum. So once upon a time, in the land of Web3, a group of developers came together to create a decentralized autonomous organization called the DAO. The DAO was a smart contract that allowed its members to vote on how to allocate funds to invest. This organization was very popular and became the largest crowdfunding campaign in history. It raised over 500 million, but one day, a hacker exploited a little vulnerability in the DAO's code and stole approximately 50 million worth in it. After much debate, the community of Ethereum decided to hard fork Ethereum, creating a new version where the hack never happens. This new version is Ethereum as we know right now, while the older version is the blockchain that was called Ethereum Classic. And so the history of the DAO hack and Ethereum comes to an end, with a valuable lesson to learn about the importance of security in Web3 world. As the history that AI helped me to write actually say this hack can be prevented just like switching two lines of code. It was a simple mistake that cost millions and it caused trust in the community. So it's a very important topic for the Web3 community. Now, let's forget this horror history and imagine cooler things. Imagine an app that can identify issues and vulnerabilities in your code and provide recommendations and suggestions on how to fix them in seconds. You don't have to wait to someone to review your code and pay high cost to someone. Also, just imagine how much time you could save with this app. So that's what I'm trying to do with Contract Sentinel. I'm trying to build a web app that helps to ensure safety in the smart contracts. You just have to input your code and just like click the button and you have all the recommendations of how to be make secure the contract. And I think this will be like a special, we will have a lot of value in small and medium teams that are trying to get like their apps in the market, but they're trying like do it quick and maybe they forget to be like cautious in some things. So this allows to check, make quick check on security and move on and iterate. Yeah, that's basically what Contract Sentinel is. if you have questions or suggestions, I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, if you could give like maybe a 30-second background on you. I know I've met you. We've had a one-on-one, but I'd like
Yeah.
everyone else to know too.
Okay, sure. Like very quick. I have been an entrepreneur like for 6 years now. I have been doing a lot of things. I have been in the Web3 space for 8 months now. And I just came across this program for Developer DAO. I am a member of Developer DAO. Yeah, I'm a Web3 developer.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
So the input that I gave you on the forum, I think is pertinent. And you were trying to use like a generative model for trying to assess whether or not the code has bugs in it. But the problem is not always just the code or the text itself. It's like the data that goes in. And so a lot of time, if you don't have like the information about the data that goes in within the actual context of the large language model, you're already going to miss any sort of opportunity to create a prediction about whether or not that's going to be exploited. And then the other thing I mentioned is that companies like Google and companies like OpenAI have created code generation models. And these code generation models work on a stochastic basis. So they're just trying to predict the next token. A lot of times they produce bad code, so they always sample from these generative models. They get like 10 samples, right? And then they rate these samples based upon whether or not they compile, whether or not static analysis determines that there's a problem in there, etc. Before you get your output in Codex, before you get your output in, I forgot the name of the Google one, or there's one for Amazon too. And then ultimately, I don't think that the generative models are the right way of going about it. I think that there's a lot better work in like theorem provers and things such as this, which are based on symbolic reasoning, because you have to like understand the program states. You have to enumerate through all the different program states to determine if the program and also the data enters into a bad state that you don't want.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Like I said, I am more like a Web3 developer. I just got like introduction to machine learning by course in build space. But what I have doing with machine learning is with OpenAI. So like I heard when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So maybe there is a better way. I would like to explore. Yeah, if I get help, like maybe it's a better way to do it. But yeah, sure.
I would say it's pretty open, and it's like an open research space to know whether generative models can be used here. Like for example, I've seen just like very simple ChatGPT examples where it does find exploits and contracts and stuff like that. And I think what endomorphosis is talking about is like the problem of hallucination. So you don't know when the model is hallucinating and like giving false information. But there's like some interesting methods for combating this hallucination. Like for example, like AI workflows where, for example, you can simulate smart contracts and stuff. There's a lot of simulation tools for simulating smart contracts, so tying them in with like GPT-3 and stuff. Maybe having some more checks in a pipeline and stuff, just to really try and control the hallucination of generative models. And so I think it's an interesting research direction. And of course, there's other ways, symbolic or more predictive techniques as well, I guess. But I think it would be a really interesting exploration.
Thank you.
One other comment I would make is that again, like this is all sort of early stage ideation, so you have like loads of freedom now to like sort of change around how you go about this. I think one of the interesting thing is to like try and do sort of fault tolerant non-critical apps. So meaning like smart contract auditing is a very critical process. And so if you can sort of make it fault tolerant applications, it's sort of, you don't need as much consideration. So one thing that comes to mind is there was a team that presented yesterday, and what they were doing, they entered the smart contract and they turned the smart contract into natural language, so that people can actually read along what the smart contract can do. And this in itself is sort of helping people understand what the contract is doing, and could help in like sort of catching errors and mistakes and so on. While also not like sort of doing a full audit of whether there's sort of a critical bugs in the code and so on. So thinking of it in like that perspective might also be a useful way, and maybe even like reaching out to those guys, because I think there's similarities in the project. So yeah, so that's just another comment. I can send in the link in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to offer two comments as well. One is like thinking about bugs in terms of like the code has bugs, and there's also conceptual bugs that are sort of like the code like is perfect, but then the concept that is implemented by the code is flawed, as we've seen with like some stablecoins and stuff. And yeah, I wonder, these seem to like imply maybe it's like slightly different approaches. And so another comment is this idea that comes from imitation learning, perhaps, or like just the idea of like fine-tuning the generative model on data of audits of smart contracts. Like a lot of auditing firms will like generate an analysis of code, and so maybe that would be helpful to guide the generative model. And like one inspiration for the start is like a recent work this year, VPT by Klein, which like pre-trains or like fine-tunes a big transformer on like specific videos, and then uses that to like do things further along. Anyway, these are my 2 comments.
Sweet. All right, everyone. Thanks, Felipe. We have our next one by Pavel, which I believe he works on automated market prediction. If I am correct, Pavel, are you there?
Yep. Hello.
Awesome.
I guess I'll share the screen.
Please do.
So I guess like yeah, I hope that the sharing option works.
Yep.
So the project is like an automated prediction market maker on Algorand. So we have already like a code base from hackathons, and the application is on this website. So this is my face, I guess. So we've published like a small article on like AI on the developer portal of Algorand with my teammates. And the problem that we're trying to solve with this project is that we see a lot of correlation in assets, and like especially crypto assets. So there's like a huge interdependence between these assets, and we think that there is lack of diversification in the portfolio. So the solution is we implement an automated prediction market maker, which provides hedging and diversification, which we think could be unconditional. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but like we can explore some opportunities. And we think that like an automated market maker architecture presents some opportunities for additional information and just a reduction of information asymmetry, and we can actually see more, we can get more information from the markets and what are the beliefs of the markets, things like that. So I guess here's the quick demo of what we currently have on the app. Like we log in with Algo wallet. Yeah. And we can start AMM by providing liquidity. So the application actually works on testnet. Probably not configured with the best parameters, but it's like we supply the USDC, which is the default liquidity token, and we can effectively make an option of like what will happen with the event. Will it resolve to yes or no option? So yeah, so like once we actually we deploy the application, we can trade these options between one another, and like the market belief actually changes with trading. So once the application is once the event has finished, we can like withdraw the liquidity from the current pool. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how to, yeah. So the roadmap is to improve the user experience and add multiple pools. And like one of the things that we can add is machine learning, which probably makes this application very over-engineered. So yeah, like we like I'm not really sure at the current moment what events to predict, and like I personally think like machine learning can aid with analysis of the trends and what is actually interesting for people to supply liquidity to the pool or to trade the options, which I'm not really sure are called options, but yeah. And we think that we can actually implement something akin to efficient Oracle, like with the architecture of Uniswap. So yeah, here are the links, and I guess that's it for the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Thavel. Any questions, anyone, or feedback or comments?
Well, I'm so in the proposal you mentioned a resolution mechanism using UMA, and I was just a little bit curious. Maybe if you could say like a sentence or two about the interplay of that in the system.
Yeah. So so for the event to actually resolve, there needs to be a sort of like a decentralized thing that actually like says whether the event is actually like completed or not, in case if the market goes goes completely bananas, right? Or sort of because like in my current perception of the algorithm is that the market will actually resolve like once the event actually happens in the real world, the market will resolve itself. I'm not really sure if there isn't like a need for this resolution mechanism, but like just in case something goes wrong or like the event is very, very like sort of controversial, maybe there needs to be a sort of resolution mechanism. Yeah. And I'm not really sure that yeah.
Cool. Any other comments or feedback?
Yeah, so you mentioned about diversification, and then you mentioned about having an oracle for market making.
Yeah.
Now, I don't recall you mentioning how you intended to do the diversification part. Like, are you looking to find correlations or lack of correlation between different tokens, for example?
Yeah, so from my perception at the moment is that it's like it's very difficult, for example, for like to find a sort of insurance for people holding like a one type of coins, for example. And like I have a sort like I had a friend, for example, reach out to me, and he asked like to build a sort of a mechanism to help him with like providing an insurance against like if the price for a token goes down, and like just I mean this probably partly solves it. Like my friend actually, like for example, he works on the decentralized like essentially in the DAO, and he receives these tokens like per like monthly or like per week. So and like his sort of reputation depends on it. So for him, it's very vital to have a sort of new mechanism for yeah, for diversification, I guess. I'm not really sure if it answers your question. Probably not.
I mean, the question that I was trying to ask was how you were going to achieve the diversification. I assumed it was something to the extent of checking correlations between, or lack of correlation between individual tokens. Then you recently mentioned, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, some sort of like insurance mechanism where you can provide insurance for many different people. If their losses are over a certain amount, then you pay out, or the insurance contract pays out, or something like that.
Yeah, to some extent, I guess like the tokens. What I mean by like diversification is that, for example, like a person can actually create his own or like his own pool with and like essentially provide liquidity, and then like diversify his assets by holding this token that actually like for example like if a person holds like a token and he creates a pool and actually bets on something like very 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 bad happening, that could essentially like provide the some hedging, but like there is no like there is no liquidity at the market. Like I'm not really sure how to even approach the problem of actually creating the like popular liquidity pools. So that's probably like very stretched. I'm not really sure.
Well, thank you, Pavel, for presenting your project. Next, we have Akshatya, and hopefully I'm saying that correct, with SciConnect, connecting decentralized science researchers. So please take it away.
Hello everyone, this is Akshita and I'll be presenting SciConnect. I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah, so SciConnect is basically a project which will help researchers with similar interests in DeSci space to connect with each other. But before going into what SciConnect is and what problem it solves, I would like to go through what DeSci is. So in a broad and in a general way, DeSci is decentralized science, which is open and which aims to bring back the power of scientists in their hands. So there are several aspects of DeSci which a lot of DeSci DAOs are solving, but I'll be talking about two of them. So one of it is like reducing dependence on so DeSci basically also aims to reduce the dependence on centralized third parties, like when when as a researcher, when you're publishing in journals, and your research. So once your research papers are published, journal impose a lot of restrictions on it, and then you might also have to pay to see those research papers, which creates a knowledge barrier in a research community. Another problem is data availability, which DeSci solves. So DeSci also, scientists can actually monetize their data, and also which also makes the data available for lot of other researchers as well as non-researchers. Now going to SciConnect and what it solves. So basically, DeSci space nowadays is gaining a lot of popularity, and there are a lot of new researchers coming into DeSci every day. And so it gets difficult to find researchers with similar interests and areas and fields, which is very important in growing the DeSci space. So SciConnect is aiming to create a recommendation engine wherein if you are a researcher, you can find those who match your profile and you can connect with them. And it will also help in collaborations, which will grow the open science DeSci space in general, and it will make easier for independent researchers and also student, like those who are looking for mentors and mentees. It will be easier for them to find those with similar field and interest. And also, last but not the least, it would also help in exploring researchers to various funding sources. So that's it for my project, for the presentation, and thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the presentation?
I have a question. I think in the proposal, it was written that data would come from DAOs, and I'm wondering if you could just speak a little bit more about what is the data.
Yeah, so right now what I'm thinking of it is maybe so I'm also part of OPSI. I was an OPSI fellow there, and also part of I can contact some DeSci DAOs and ask them researchers to fill a type form or Google form and have some questions which would help in bringing this model for very initial stages. But later on, my plan is to build a social platform for researchers. So the data would come from there itself when they sign up and everything. So that is, I would have to discuss, think about that idea more, but maybe next year in the beginning. So that's what I'm thinking as of now. But of course, there is a room for improvisations. So
maybe to play with this idea, to preserve the up and characteristic or the content, essentially characteristic of a platform, the person could import from their all of their papers and stuff, like bibliography and stuff.
Yeah, something like that. I've also been working on something similar before. It's not yet 100% done, but for the publications wherein researchers can upload their publications, they could keep it public or private depending on the copyrights, because right now a lot of online journals are there, but they are not as reputed sometimes for the researchers to consider uploading it there. So I think there's a long way for papers, etc. There's a lot of thinking also that has to go behind it. So
maybe
I have some ideas.
If I may just share a quick idea, which is the idea of learning from feedback. Let's say the recommender system says, you match with person X, Y, and with persons X, Y, and Z. And then I could say, actually, I approve of the recommendation, or I disapprove of the recommendation. And so there can be learning from feedback.
That is really good feedback. Yeah, thank you so much.
We know a couple of projects working on project person matches, and so we can definitely connect you with two of those. A lot of them are for DAO contributors and stuff like that, but there's a ton of tools that we can use. I think it would be pretty quick to prototype something using the OpenAI API, and what you can do is pass all of the relevant data about a researcher through an LLM, into an embedding model, which kind of like compresses the documents into like a vector space or a representation space, and then you can like compare how close those the different representations are, the distance between them, and then maybe the ones that are close are like good matches and stuff. And like this is totally possible in like a few days of work with new tools and stuff. So I'd love to like chat with you offline and help you
Thank
to
you
do
so
that.
much. Yeah, that would be very nice. Thank you.
And I believe you're a DD member. I believe one of the projects that Richard had in mind was Eden Protocol. They're working on a recommendation engine again from recommending members of DAOs to particular projects within DAOs. Since you're a member, I will just find you and I will like try to do the intro as well, like very quickly. Since you're in DD already, Eden Protocol is like a project of DD, so they came out of DD, so it'll be pretty easy for me to do. So we'll chat as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Cool. So our last one is Isanu, who'll be using, I believe, textual inversion for creating or AI generated images of pets. But I'll let you take it away, and yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. And let me share my screen. And also, I have my teammate Daniel here who will be hopping in time to time.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I have a PowerPoint which I should open now. Yeah, tell your screen. And yeah, so my name's Isamu, and I'm like a undergraduate student at the university called Drexel in Philadelphia. And I worked in like a few AI jobs before, and like working like for my last job, I worked with diffusion models, where this idea came from. And yeah, Daniel, do you want to do an introduction?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Perfect.
I also go to the same school. I go to Drexel. I'm a PhD student, kind of focusing on generalization theory of machine learning, and kind of got interested in diffusion models. So we've been working together to kind of explore more about them.
Yep. And so, yeah, the first idea came from, so my roommate had a dog called Frida, and as you can see, she's pretty cute. And so, and I only had like 5 pictures of her. So, and while I was kind of like thinking about ways of how do I, from just 5 pictures, generate like infinite pictures of her, a new research came out called textual inversion, where you can, the basic idea is given like a couple of pictures, you can learn like the embeddings of the words so that the machine will understand like what kind of image you want to make. And through like a lot of optimizations, I was able to even make like a puppy version of a Frida over here, which the owners really like. And yeah, my initial plan was just to kind of like deploy this AI model of like my roommate's dog generator. But I met Richard in like a Discord server, and the idea became, why don't we try to like make like a web server or something where users can upload photos of their pets, and then we can use like AI to generate like the pets from those few images, and with like the various text prompts. Like for example, you can make like a puppy or like kitten version. Now, so kind of like I explored this with my previous grant, but there were like a couple of issues. So for textual inversion, there are 2 main benefits of it. So the memory requirement for like each concept is really small, because you just need to know the embedding. So it's kind of like a 10 times 768 vector, which is like a really small amount of memory to represent the concept. And also it's easy to have multiple concepts, because you can just keep adding more embeddings to represent each concept. However, the issue is that, at least for me, it takes roughly like 15 hours of GPU time to like create create these new concepts. So like per concept, it requires like around $2 of cost, like even if you use like the cheapest option in Burst AI. And also sometimes like even after all that effort, like the results might look terrible or like inconsistent and stuff. And so the question is, what about Dream Booth, which is like the Google's idea for textual inversion? But instead of just training on the embeddings over here, the idea is like, why don't we train on like the entire model at once? But yeah, so yeah, the advantage is it has impressive visual detail and like it has very fast training. Like I can train a new concept in like 15 minutes or so. But well, number one was the one I mainly experienced, which is like it can be prone to overfitting. And basically what that means is like if you give it some photos to train on, sometimes it just copies that dog over to like different settings. And so like it just looks like exactly the same as the input photo. But more importantly, it needs like a couple gigabytes of storage for each concept, which becomes very costly for like deployment infrastructure. And also it suffers when you want to do like multiple concepts. So like if you want to say, if you only have like a certain amount of RAM, you need to like swap out entire models in order to kind of like do inference for like a certain user's concepts. So yeah, kind of like for the idea for this grant, sorry for taking so long, but can we make like a fast and low memory method to train a person's concept from 4 or 5 images so that we can kind of like deploy to a web server? And yeah, our main goal is to explore that. And there's mainly 3 ideas we have. So the first approach is the encoder approach. And we were thinking, why don't we train like a big encoder over here that encodes these images and outputs like embeddings, so that basically what this can do is that if we have like a perfect encoder over here that can perfectly represent these images, we can just plug this in instead of like doing all this kind of the time-consuming training over here. It just kind of generate like the text that represents the concept in one go, thus saving like the amount of time needed. And also we can just have the low memory space of the just having like the embeddings saved. And yeah, kind of like, as I said, these are what I just said. And kind of like, this is just preliminary results after like just 30 minutes of training on collaboratively before it got shut down. But I was able to encode this picture and get this, which is, honestly, it doesn't look too good, but I'm honestly impressed it found the pattern so far. And like with more training, it will definitely do better. Yeah, and more, yeah, for the interest, yeah, and there's like new research and stuff where you can kind of like figure out not just like the tokens that represent this concept, but this dream artist person found like ways to represent the embeddings of what's not that dog picture. So you can say like, oh, this isn't a blue dog, you know, and it can kind of like learn that. And for this research, apparently they were able to get these images from just one example, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, kind of like that's like the main approaches, but also like there's like new research from Adobe where they kind of like found the intersection between textual inversion and Dream Booth, where they train like parts of the network and like the embeddings at the same time, and thus it's actually kind of like it actually trains in 6 minutes, and concepts can be saved in 75 megabytes, which are quite exciting fields to explore. And also there's something called DORA, which saves the concept in even 5 megabytes. So yeah, kind of like my main goal here, even if we rush at the end, is to like basically get a deployable textual inversion method for to make like a pet generator from like few images practical. Yeah. Sorry for the long presentation.
That was awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody have any questions or comments for Isuno?
You kind of went through the last couple of slides kind of quickly, and I didn't know if the Adobe solution is based off of hyper networks or something.
Oh no.
And then,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead with your question.
yeah, so I don't know if the Adobe method was based off of hyper networks, like just an additional network that modifies the non-frozen parameters in the model. And then I understand that what you're telling me is that your method that you had been experimenting with was to fine-tune the encoder so that the encoder creates a more limited set of vector outputs. Like I guess you mean you're just like fine-tuning clips or something like this.
Okay. Yeah, like the sorry for the audio, but yeah, the image. I'm for the current one, I'm fine tuning like one of the biggest image encoders of Crypt, so that it generates like the text embeddings, which is I think there can be a lot of optimizations made there. And for sorry about the rushing for the end. I was just kind of speeding, but basically kind of like the idea so the Adobe research is something they call custom diffusion, like over here. And actually, it's a research that just came out like 11 days ago, I think. And the idea is instead of just fine-tuning it's like a modification of Dreambooks. So instead of just fine-tuning just the embeddings in like textual inversion, we also fine-tune like the attention portion, like the keys and values of the attention portion. So like a certain parts of the network, and no modifications are made. It's just kind of like choosing which side to freeze and train.
So like I had seen your proposal last month, and the reason why I didn't vote on it was because it wasn't clear what the proposal was doing and what the goals were, and I think that the title is a little bit misleading. If it was something other than it was something other than generate a picture of my dog, because I had assumed that basically your $500 grant was to just go to Dream Booth, put a couple pictures of your dog in it, and then say, I can make dog pictures.
Sorry. What do you think will be a better title for this?
I'm not really sure what. I mean, I guess I could work it out with you after we're done to revise your proposal. But I'm just telling you why I didn't vote on it the last time. No worries. And I think I didn't even attend the grant presentation last time, so that but thanks for the feedback. Yeah, I guess we will definitely come up with a better title.
I think the idea has kind of developed since the first grants as well, and just iterating on it and stuff. So it's great to see the progress.
Yeah, I'm planning to make like open source, like publish on Arxiv and stuff, and hopefully I think it'll be pretty exciting to see if it's like practical to kind of bring textual inversion and stuff to the next stage of like having like very fast low memory generation, so that you can have like usual people who just kind of access website and put images in to use it.
I see one potential user of your app as well has just showed off
exactly
Rufus's screen. So it's great.
So I do think that the clip method is promising, because there are methods that are coming out like Paella, which don't use transformers and use a CNN instead. So I guess they use clip, but they're not using the diffusion method. They're using CNNs to do the same thing. And I think that being able to fine-tune clip for the configuration-free guidance, I think, is a good approach that ports over to both CNN and diffusion-based methods.
Interesting. What's the method you said? Paella?
Paella, yeah. I can send it to you. I'll put it on the forum.
Oh, thank you.
And the CNN Paella method is significantly faster, because instead of going through like this denoising, like recursive denoising step, it is a CNN, and it gets it done much more quickly.
So is it like a GAN?
Sorry?
Is it like a GAN?
No, it's a convolutional neural network, and I don't think it's a GAN.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds.
So I think that being able to fine-tune the clip model, I think, is a portable method to be able to use more than just diffusion models. So like let's say, for instance, you fine-tune the clip, right? And then there's other methods, like, for instance, text to 3D. And they do diffusion on the mesh. Like, so they mess with the vertices of the mesh and the texture until clip returns that the viewport looks like a dog or looks like your dog, right? So being able to modify clip is useful for more than just one model.
Okay, so kind of like the idea is you can do like not just textual inversion on just images, but also basically like anything that can be generated, like 3D models or music.
Well, anything that uses clip, right? And there's more than just the stable diffusion that uses clip. Like I mentioned, there's some 3D stuff that basically messes with vertices and textures until clip returns that appropriate classification. For example, you say I want a chair, and then it messes with the textures until you get a 3D model of a chair.
Okay, I think that's a good idea for the next grant, to be honest.
All right. I have a feeling you guys will be connecting more on the forum. Want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 11 minutes past. Those were all of the presentations. I believe Endomorphosis, though, wanted to do an update for his deliverable and for a previous grant he won. Looking forward to that. If you want to share, please do.
Yeah. So I apologize that it's been taking so long. Some of the barriers that I've been having with regards to Adobe are getting cleared up. So for those of you that don't know, I was working on an Adobe Photoshop plugin. The Adobe Photoshop app is kind of broken. And so I recently picked up on this again. Also, there's been a bunch of stuff with like Paella and Stable Diffusion version 2 and Distilled Stable Diffusion, which is like an 8 times faster version of Stable Diffusion. And so it's like a lot of development keeps changing because the environment changes. I added payments that just use the Coinbase Commerce and the PayPal to create tokens. I haven't done anything with smart contracts yet. And then the orchestration engine that I have now, instead of just doing one Stable Diffusion model, can do Stable Diffusion 2, can do like almost any arbitrary model using the token payments. So like the API that I have, you send to the API the model that you want inference for and your token, then the model parameters, and then it returns back to you the output of the model for the user to compose into whatever app. So in the context of Photoshop, I can say I want Stable Diffusion 1.5, or I want Stable Diffusion 2, or I want Paella, or I want something else, like a Whisper. That was another model that I was messing with, and it will deduct my tokens and return back the data. Now, the other thing that I had been working on is taking the entire Photoshop API and condensing the API into a method suitable for GPT-3 codecs. So the idea is that I capture either in text or with voice audio the instruction, and then the instruction gets converted into Photoshop commands. And the Photoshop commands are run on Photoshop, and then the output from Photoshop is sent to the master, and then the master returns it to the client. So like if I had a picture of a dog and then I used my API, I could say, add the text, my favorite dog, to this image. Photoshop, like the Photoshop worker, would then take that text, convert it into Photoshop commands, run the Photoshop commands, and then return the image.
It's good.
Awesome. I guess any feedback, or I don't know. I have context of what you were building. I don't know if other members did. I know Richard and Atesh do. But yeah, any like feedback or questions at all before we wrap it up?
I was gonna. Oh yeah, go ahead. You, Sam.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't familiar with your proposal, but is it basically a way to like convert natural language to Photoshop commands?
No, the proposal was to provide an API for stable diffusion, so that people can provide crypto payments and can connect to WebSockets and send requests and get back an image so that they can integrate it into whatever app they have. The main product that I'm trying to sell to the public is a Photoshop plugin for stable diffusion, where it has a much better UI than a bunch of the other Photoshop plugins. And then I'm also doing my own cloud infrastructure instead of charging people $100 to let them use Dream Studio and Photoshop. And the additional benefits is that because I'm doing my own cloud orchestration, I can use this WebSocket API to do inference for multiple models and compose multiple models or multiple workers. So, for example, instead of now just only using Photoshop plugins to capture Photoshop users, I can provide Photoshop as an API for people who want to programmatically use Photoshop tools without having Photoshop actually installed on their own system. And part of this, like also GANs, like being able to upscale images and being able to do like face restoration or deep fakes if they wanted to, because it's just calling out to a Docker container, and then you provide the when the container launches, you provide the container to the information that you want and the parameters, and then the Docker container gives you back information. And if the Docker container is idle for a certain amount of time, 5 minutes, and then it shuts down, I send the command to kill the container.
I think someone is. Yeah, I think someone's at the front door.
Well, thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, thanks, Endomorphosis. Yeah, everyone, that pretty much concludes it. We had like a lot of great presentations today. I letting you know, we recorded this. We'll upload it on YouTube for the rest of the community to be able to see. We're currently in the middle of the voting phase, right? Last day to vote is the 23rd. You can vote right now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Tomorrow, we have our final town hall presentations. So if you guys want to come down and check out, I think we only have like 5 more. And that's it. It'll be a lot of fun. Any final words or anything else to share before we close it? Sweet. Awesome. Well, there you have it. Hopefully I see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace.